Hi there, and welcome to the Hilton UK and Ireland Outplacement Support session on my interview. Today we're going to cover the interview process, what types of interviews, assessments, and what you can expect, what to do in preparation, researching, planning, and self-prep on the day, some top tips, techniques, and question responses, post-interview, how to analyse the interview and follow up. If you receive a job offer, how to review that offer, negotiate, and accept or reject. And if you are unsuccessful, how to handle that rejection. We're going to start off by looking at a general interview process. So at this stage, we are considering that your application has been received and shortlisted. You will then receive some form of phone screening. So this can be either, quite short, just giving you a quick call, making sure you have the right to work, that you're still interested and when you can come for an interview. Or it might be something slightly longer and a bit more detail where they're really trying to confirm your eligibility for the role or your suitability. After this, you may be placed on ICE, which is essentially a employer saying, they don't want to regret you just yet. They don't want to say, no, you're absolutely not suitable, but maybe they're not quite at that point where they're ready to take this role forward, or maybe they feel they have some slightly stronger candidates they want to explore first. You may be unsuccessful, so you may be regretted, or you may go on to the next stage. So what we would class as sort of this next step from a phone screening would be either to do a behavioural online skills test or go directly into a first stage interview. A behavioural online skills test can be something looking at sort of how many words per minute can you type, something along those lines. A first stage interview could be quite open. It could be with a hiring manager directly, somebody that is a decision maker and is able to decide based off that interview. Or it could be a sort of first stage screening, trying to wheedle the number of applications down a little bit to the strongest candidates. So what we'd say after this first stage interview is that you could be placed on ICE, you could be offered, or you could be regretted at this stage. If you do need to take this interview process a little bit further, you could then have to do your online behavioural test if you haven't done one already, or move into the second stage interview. It's unlikely a majority of positions are going to go beyond a two-stage interview. There might be a third, which might be a little bit more of a presentation or panel, but a second stage, or should really be the end of the line for an interview process. And this will be a lot more of sort of a skills deep dive, something really touching into, okay, we really need this person to have this. Let's dig into that a little bit more. After the second stage interview, you should receive a final outcome, which would be your offer or your regrets. Throughout an interview process, or even reading job descriptions, you're going to hear some words around different types of questions or interview types. So I'm going to run through a couple of those now. For instance, a behavioural interview or a behavioural interview question will be digging into those sort of tell me about a time situations. It'll be the what did you do questions, asking about things that you've done in the past to give a great indication of how you will behave or react in the future. A competency-based interview or competency-based interview question will be touching in on your use of a specific skill. So how well can you do this? A situational interview or interview question will be a role play. A panel interview will have multiple interviewers who will all be maybe assigned certain things to look out for or really work together on making a decision. A case interview is quite a in-depth job scenario. So for example, you might be asked by the hiring manager to sell me 10 laptops. Then you as the interviewee would have to go back and say, okay, cool. Before I do that, I want to confirm how much they cost, how much you want to sell them for, what are the specs, blah, 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 blah. Get all the information you need to do that and then go, okay, that's the scenario. I need to sell these 10 laptops. This is how I would do that. And a presentation would be on a specific subject. You could be asked to do behavioural or skills-based interview or skills-based assessment, which could be an aptitude or psychometric test or a skills assessment. An aptitude test will test your ability to perform tasks and react to certain situations at work, whereas a psychometric test would be a bit more multiple choice, and your score will be marked and levelled against other candidates who have taken the same test as you. Now, these tests can run through various key abilities or personality traits, such as your ability to, reason with logic, use diagrams, flowcharts. It could be situational and want to test your problem-solving skills. It could be looking into your numerical or verbal reasoning skills or your abstract reasoning, such as an IQ test. A skills assessment is more of a job stimulation exercise, such as making a mock sales call, a writing assignment, or a presentation. These can be in any format as long as they are related to the job you're applying for, and the manager will be looking for both the skill you require for the role and the passion and desire to perform that job. So some examples of a skills test you might be asked to do would be that words per minute type test, or it could be if you are applying for a role within a spa, asking you to perform a massage, so they can have a look at those skills in lifetime. When you have an interview booked, there are certain things you need to have confirmed. So they should be sent to you in writing. If they're not, then do ask. If there is anything missing, do ask for this. But you want to confirm when it will be and where it will be, the name of the person you'll be meeting with, what role you will be interviewing for, where it will be. So if it's going to be on site, if you need parking, is there parking available for you? If it's going to be online, making sure you have the login details ahead of time so you can create profiles if you need to and make sure there's no technical issues. At this stage, it'd be really good to confirm what the stages of the interviews will be. So you know roughly if there's timelines of when they're planning on doing first, second, third stage interviews, and if they are planning on meeting with multiple people, and if there is a certain dress code that is required for these interviews or these companies. Now, there's a fair bit of preparation you need to do in advance for an interview once you know, okay, it's on next Tuesday at 1 o'clock, whatever it may be. Now it's time to prep. So that first stage is really taking a moment to speak to that woman or that man in the mirror. You may not have left the house for the last few months. You might have been furloughed, you might have been made redundant. It really is time to kickstart our confidence ahead of an interview. You want to practice eye contact, practice speaking out loud, practice your posture, smiling. It's really important to make sure we tell ourselves something positive every day. Tell yourself you're amazing. Tell yourself you can exceed. Tell yourself what skills you absolutely going to smash, and really start working on your confidence now ahead of that interview. We're then going to have a look at yourself. Take a look at me, myself, and I, and ask yourself these questions. Where am I coming from? How well do you know your current role, your current targets, and your current responsibilities? What is your career plan? So where do you want to be in 1, 5, or 10 years' time? Have you done a SWOT analysis? Find out what you're really good at or what you find challenging, and discover what are your personal goals and values. And can this company help with those? It's then to have a time to take a look at ourselves on paper and online. So do you know your CV? Are you prepared to answer any questions about career gaps? Have you been honest on your CV? And do you know all the information that you've put on there? If you've inputted grades, scores, facts, figures, targets, outcomes, awards, anything like that, do you know them? Do you remember them? It's really important that if you're asked, you can mirror what is on that CV. And have you checked your online profiles and ensured that they are appropriate? Everybody has a photo somewhere that they don't like. Everyone has a photo out there that they're a bit embarrassed about. Be prepared to answer questions about that picture or get it removed. Now, we've all done a bit of research before we've applied for a position, but now we have an interview booked, it's time to dig deep. We want to check out that company's website. We want to get a better understanding on what they do, what their values are, what industries they sit within, and what their management structure looks like. We want to Google them and particularly look at the news tab. Check out key public information, changes to businesses, or any newsworthy stories, the good and the bad. We want to find out what the public's perception of a company is. It's also really good to have a look at what information on what products they sell and what services they offer. Check out their social media. What's their following like? What's their culture like? And what causes do they publicly support? Check out their LinkedIn. Have a look for common interests or mutual connections. Look up the interviewing manager. Research their history and see if you can find some common ground. Check out the company's rating on things such as Glassdoor or Indeed's top rated workplaces. And look at award panels, particularly ones like Great Places to Work or very industry specific ones, to find out if they are recognised within their fields. And again, let's be asking around, reach out to our networks again, see if anybody has any experience with them and find that out. All of this information will go together to help you create a fantastic first impression, to show that you've done your research, but also allow you to break the ice and have that initial contact with the manager when you come into your interview. We want to make sure that we are prepared and we're going to dress to impress. So as an overall rule, you want to be polished, professional, and fit for the company that you're interviewing with. So this is why it's so important at the interview confirmation stage that you confirm, is there a dress code I need to adhere to? If you are going for an interview for a formal, corporate, banking, finance, that sort of world, stick to a suit within a solid colour, such as navy, black, or dark grey. Ensure that your shirt or blouse is colour coordinated with that suit. If you are wearing a skirt, keep it just above, just below the knee. Make sure that you are wearing a tie if you are wearing a collared shirt. Ensure you have dark socks on neutral coloured tights, conservative shoes or small heels, neat professional hairstyles and beards, neatly trimmed nails and a professional colour if they are painted, and light makeup. If you are advised to dress business casual or smart casual, a lot of people think this means jeans and trainers. It doesn't. Stick to your chinos, your slacks, your dress trousers. Keep closed-toe shoes at all times. If you do want to wear a polo shirt and a jumper at this stage, it might be appropriate, but do make sure that you are ensuring that you are looking professional and clean and polished. If you are told it's casual interview, if you know it's going to be at a startup or something slightly more along the sort of construction route, something along those lines, it can be okay to dress down casually in some instances. Just make sure that it's appropriate. If you want to wear denim, stick to dark denim, clean, no rips in it. It's never harmful to chuck a blazer on top just to, add a little bit of polish. It is appropriate to wear a colourful shirt or polo if you do want to go for an interview dress down, but ensure that you have no logos. And now we need to address the questions. There's a bunch of questions out there that people say, these are ones that you're going to be asked all the time. And what we want to do is run through some of those with you and how to create the appropriate answer. So the first one is, tell me a little bit about yourself. This is always going to be asked at the beginning of an interview, and it's going to be a great opportunity to make a fantastic first impression. Use this time to talk about your experiences, your hobbies, and your goals. Try not to get too personal, because your interviewer doesn't necessarily want to hear about your family relationships, your feelings on religion or politics. Keep it professional and focus on relevant skills and experience. Practice this at home ahead of time and make this soundbite around 2 minutes long. You might be asked something along the lines of, what are your biggest weaknesses or what are your biggest strengths? Most people don't like talking about their challenging areas for fear it can cost them a job. But what the interviewer wants to see is if your self-awareness and improvements. Everyone has weaknesses, but use this time to explain what you're doing about it. You might be asked, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Employers want to know that their goals fit in with yours. Where do you see yourself in the company in 5 years' time? If you are applying for a role in retail and your 5-year plan is to become a bar manager, you may not necessarily be in it for the long run. And normally employers are looking for commitment to prevent high turnover and the cost associated with recruitment. But companies do also want to see some level of sensible ambition. So even if you're not aiming for the very top of the food chain, some drive to progress through a training program, maybe 1 or 2 levels up across the company over the next 5 years or so. It is healthy. You might be asked something along the lines of, why do you want to do this job? Or why should we hire you? What kind of work environment do you like best? And tell me how you think other people would describe you. These questions are really about digging into your personality, so be conscious of those buzzwords that you use, talking about how you like to be in a professional work environment, a quiet work environment, somewhere quite buzzing, somewhere quite loud. You want to be careful of those, well, not careful, but you want to consider those words that you use, because that is how the manager will associate you moving forward. And you're going to be asked what salary you're looking for. Make sure you've done your research so you know what a competitive salary for that role and area is. Have a salary range in mind. However, do try and get them to tell you what their range is before you disclose your expectations. Try not to refuse to answer the questions if they are quite insistent and they want to know your expectations. But emphasize that if you have to give them a range, this is because you've done your homework. You may then also be asked behavioural based questions. These are the ones I mentioned previously that are tell me about a time. So what do you consider to be your biggest professional achievement? Tell me about the last time a co-worker or a customer got angry at you. Tell me about how you worked effectively under pressure, or give an example of how you've worked on a team. Luckily, there's a very, very easy way to structure the answer to these types of questions, and that's called the STAR technique. So the first thing you need to do is prepare. Once they ask you the question, listen carefully and think of an example that you have prepared ahead of time. Don't rush. We want to consider the situation. It's going to start off with the event, the who, what, where, when, why. We're then going to talk about the task. So what did you need to achieve and what were your challenges? You then want to talk about your actions and describe what you did. If possible, to pair it with the company's desired traits, this is the place to do it. And the results. What was the outcome? Give as much detail as possible. So if this person that's gone in for an interview was asked, tell me about a time when you have gone above and beyond for a client and guest. We're going to take a minute. We're going to think through our prepared examples. The situation. A client was getting married in our hotel and was having a very large event on a set budget and couldn't afford the room they wanted as it was £2,000 over their budget. My role was to ensure we received the business and met our monthly targets, but also to make sure the client got their dream wedding. Originally, I quoted them for an alternative room. However, after meeting, I approached the sales manager and worked with her to reduce the price on their dream room. I also spoke with the head chef and created a menu that allowed them to save on the food, freeing up funds to afford the room on their budget. As a result, the client was delighted. They booked the room, meaning our monthly targets were met. In addition, they told their families, and we were asked to host their nephew's bar mitzvah in the hotel 2 months later, therefore bringing extra revenue to the business. So this structure of situation, task, action, and results allows you to lay out the answer to your question really quite well and makes it broken up into those little chunks, gives you room to breathe, gives you room to take a breath and really come across as calm and poised as possible. If you are asked to do a presentation, there is some prep you may be required to do in advance. So you want to consider what content is expected from me. How long do I have? What is available to me? Do I have a projector or speakers, a flip chart, pens? What can I access? You should consider how you want to format it. You can use a standard PowerPoint, you can use Prezi, a flip chart, whiteboard, video. And you want to consider who's going to be present at that presentation. So if you can get the names and job titles, that's great. It allows you to do that research ahead of time. Some tips to remember is that you really want to keep it within time, including space for a question and answer session. You want to practice the timing on at least 2 occasions, ideally with live people. Doing it in front of somebody always takes slightly longer, so you want to make sure that you get your timing correct. You want to have it checked. Spelling, grammar, make sure your videos are working. Ensure that you consider your personal presentation from head to toe. If you do need some cue cards, absolutely prep them, bring them along with you. Don't necessarily have a script in front of you. Ensure that there's room to involve the audience, and that means everyone, not just the most senior person or the decision maker. Ensure that you bring backups and that you have printed and binded copies of your presentation. This supports you just in case there's any technical issues, but also so that the panel can review it during your question and answer session. And most importantly, Take some time and relax. So we've done all the prep we can. So how can we make a fantastic impression on the day? The most important thing we can do is plan our journey and arrive 15 minutes early. Gives us time to use the bathroom, to relax, to go over our notes, and also give the manager a heads up that you're there, give them some time to prepare. You want to consider clothing. So this might include your coat, your handbag, any proof of ID you need to bring with you, plus your clothes that you've arranged ahead of time. You want to bring your notes along with you, your research and interview prep. You can read this on the bus or the train on the way there, when you arrive, and give you time to just refresh before going in. You want to ensure you treat everybody from the moment you arrive with respect, because you never know who will be asked about you. And most importantly, you want to smile and be yourself, even whilst waiting. I'm going to play a short video now. So we're going to have around 4 minutes on this fantastic Indeed video on sort of how to perform and work well within an interview.
Arguably, meet Anya, a recent grad majoring in business administration. She's interviewing for an entry-level project management position. Note her posture: head up, shoulders pulled back, no slouching, and no laid backness. The interview begins the minute you walk into the building. Anya treats everyone in the office with respect while keeping eye contact. From security personnel to receptionists, anyone you run into on your way in could be asked to give feedback on you. It's normal to be nervous. When nerves kick in, the natural human response is to take short breaths and breathe faster. Stay calm by taking a deep breath before entering. Hold it, count to 3, and then slowly breathe out. Pause. First, ace those introductions. Greet everyone in a way that is authentic to you, like, hey, nice to meet you, and then say their name. That one always works. You know, you're more likely to remember their name if you say it out loud when you first meet. A lot of the time, small talk comes up before any questions. It's good to have a few current events or topics in mind. You can't possibly predict what they're going to ask, but you can practice answering the common ones, like, why do you want to work here? What makes you unique? Let's see what our interviewer asks.
So I want to hear more. Tell me a little about your experience and what you'd bring to this role.
Pause. When this is asked, they're looking to learn what makes you stand out. Be honest with your answers. That means having to pause and think for a second. That is all right. Think about your past experiences and how the role lines up with your future goals. It never hurts to be honest.
Great question. Ever since I was young, I've always been the organized one in my family. Whether it was helping my parents schedule vacations or color coordinating my closet, naturally that lifestyle got me here, project management. I've been a people person for as long as I can remember. Plain and simple, I love team building and making sure everyone has a part. Just the other month.
Ooh, just really quick, don't speak negatively about previous places you've worked. Instead, talk about what you've learned.
I helped lead a team of 5 to deliver a 3-week sales project a few days ahead of schedule. I'd love to bring these things here.
Perfect. A response like this not only answers the question, but also shows off her personality. But remember, there's no one right way to interview and answer questions. Be yourself and let your personality shine. Be aware of your movements. Practice polite, confident body language. Subtly miming your interviewer's posture can actually create a sense of connection. Of all places, unnecessary movements are hard to ignore in an interview. Whether it's tapping your fingers or bouncing your leg, be aware and stay present.
Hey, it's been great chatting so far. I guess my last question is, do you have any questions for me?
Ooh, this is a hot one. Make sure to have a short list of questions for your employer in your back pocket. Ask the questions you would if you got the job. If tomorrow was your first day, what would you want to know from the manager? Even if you don't have any burning questions, asking a few shows that you did your homework and that you really care. Some include, what do you like best about working here? What are some mistakes people have made in this position? What is a goal you're currently working toward? How will my performance be evaluated?
Well, I did read that you're expanding your software team next quarter. I'm curious how you plan to carry that out.
The interview isn't actually over. Always follow up within 24 hours with a thank you email to the hiring manager. This can be a quick note simply thanking them for their time, or a longer one that elaborates on some of the things you talked about. It's key to leaving a lasting impression. This was the breakdown of an interview. Till next time.
So super important at the beginning of an interview is the greeting. Obviously, this will be done in the form of a handshake. Even if you know the person interviewing you, avoid a hug, a cheek kiss, anything like that. You shake with your right hand, ideally with a dry palm, so wash your hands just before you go into your interview. And practice your grip. You want to make sure it is strong, but it's not super vice-like, the knuckle crusher, or not a dead fish just sort of flapping around while the other person waves your arm. You want to keep it around 3 to 4 seconds, 3 or 4 shakes, and maintain eye contact the whole time. Now, the way that I have found to really boost your confidence and, really make sure you perform exceedingly well in your interview is to use those 15 minutes beforehand when you've arrived nice and early to find somewhere quiet and perform the power pose. So it's another super short video, it's only a couple minutes long, where the amazing Amy Cuddy will go through the science behind this.
So I want to start by offering you a free no-tech life hack, and all it requires of you is this, that you change your posture for 2 minutes. I became especially interested in nonverbal expressions of power and dominance. And what are nonverbal expressions of power and dominance? Well, so in the animal kingdom, they are about expanding. So you make yourself big, you stretch out, and humans do the same thing. So they do this both when they have power sort of chronically, and also when they're feeling powerful in the moment. So powerful people tend to be, not surprisingly, more assertive and more confident. Physiologically, there also are differences on 2 key hormones, testosterone, which is the dominance hormone, and cortisol, which is the stress hormone. We decided to bring people into the lab and run a little experiment. And these people adopted for 2 minutes high power poses or low power poses. And I'm just going to show you 5 of the poses, although they took on only 2. This is what happens. They come in, they spit into a vial. We, for 2 minutes, say, you need to do this or this. We then ask them, how powerful do you feel on a series of items? And then we take another saliva sample. Here's what we find on testosterone. From their baseline when they come in, high-power people experience about a 20% increase, and low-power people experience about a 10% decrease. Here's what you get on cortisol. High-power people experience about a 25% decrease, and the low-power people experience about a 15% increase. So 2 minutes lead to these hormonal changes that configure your brain to basically be either assertive, confident, and comfortable, or really stress reactive. But the next question, of course, is, can power posing for a few minutes really change your life in meaningful ways? And so what matters, where you want to use this is evaluative situations. We decided that the one that most people could relate to was the job interview. What do you do before you go into a job interview? You do this, right? You're sitting down, you're looking at your notes, you're hunching up, making yourself small, when really what you should be doing maybe is this, like in the bathroom. Okay, so we bring people into a lab, and they do either high or low power poses again. They go through a very stressful job interview. It's 5 minutes long. They are being recorded. They're being judged also. We then have these coders look at these tapes, 4 of them. They're blind to the hypothesis. They're blind to the conditions. They have no idea who's been posing in what pose. They end up looking at these sets of tapes, and they say, oh, we want to hire these people, all the high power posers. We don't want to hire these people. But what's driving it? It's not about the content of the speech. It's about the presence that they're bringing to the speech. The last thing I want to leave you with is this. Tiny tweaks can lead to big changes. Before you go into the next stressful evaluative situation, for 2 minutes, try doing this in the elevator, in a bathroom stall, at your desk behind closed doors. That's what you want to do. Configure your brain to cope the best in that situation. Get your testosterone up, get your cortisol down, and it can significantly change the outcomes of their life. Thank you.
This technique really, really works. So use those times, those minutes before you have your interview. Once you've arrived, find somewhere quiet, go into a bathroom, or if there's a stairwell, and just do the power pose for 2 minutes, and it will dramatically change your confidence and the way you perform in your interview. At the end of the interview, you're going to be asked, what questions do you have for me? Is there anything you want to ask me? And there's kind of a bunch of different things you can ask. So you can stick it around the company, considering things such as, why has this position become available? What are my KPIs going to be? Have these targets ever been achieved? And if not, why not? Where would this job fit within the structure? Who's going to be in charge? Who are you going to be in charge of anyone where you have multiple bosses? And what's the staff turnover like? Or you can ask the manager about themselves. So how would they describe the company's culture? How would they describe their management style? What is the best thing about working there? What was it made them join the company? And is there anything that I've said that would make me doubt that I'm a great fit for this position? The interview is not finished there though. Within 24 hours of the interview, you need to send, or should send, a thank you email to the recruiter and the hiring manager. You want to express how much you appreciated the meeting, making sure that's the thank you part. Include something specific about the interview or items you discussed. So if in your interview you both discussed having worked with a person in the past, include that in there. If you both discussed watching the football game that evening, include a line in there about that. Bring something personal to your email to make the manager remember you. Reiterate why you're excited for that opportunity and remind them what skills you can bring to the table. Advise that you're looking forward to the next steps. Include any information that they might have requested, so things like certificates or confirmation of dates, and include your contact information. And then it's super important to evaluate our own performance after an interview and consider, how well did you introduce yourself? To what extent were you confident and professional? How clear and calm was your voice? Was your body language positive and engaging? How successfully did you market your strengths? And how well did you manage the difficult questions? And here we're not looking to beat ourselves up. We're not looking for, oh my God, I did so bad at the interview because I messed this up or this up. This is really about being self-aware. So if you are unsuccessful, you can acknowledge, okay, I didn't do so great on the difficult questions. Maybe I should work on that. Maybe I didn't come across very confidently, or I don't feel I came across very confidently. But rather than waiting until after you've had an outcome, do this directly after your interview while it's still fresh in your mind, so you can make yourself that list and that idea of what you need to work on ahead of time. If you are unsuccessful for an interview, it can be quite difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a short little video here on how to overcome that professional rejection.
Rejection happens to everyone, especially during the job search. But no matter how many times you've been turned down, you can overcome professional rejection with confidence, patience, and hard work. Of course, rejection is never easy. Whether you're new to the professional world or you've spent 20 years in the workforce, getting turned down is not pleasant. Whenever you apply for a job or have an interview, brace yourself for the possibility that you could get turned down. And though it's easier said than done, try not to take rejection personally. Remember that hiring managers are simply trying to find the best fit for the company. Just because you aren't chosen doesn't mean you are worth any less as a person. You'll probably never know why you were rejected for a job, so all you can do is put forth your best self, and the rest is out of your control. Also, give yourself time to process your emotions after a rejection, especially if you were turned down for a job you really wanted. Take some deep breaths and find a way to turn that negative energy into something positive. Indulge in a hobby like music or exercise, or spend time with your family. Briefly taking a step away from the job search can keep you from feeling overwhelmed. And while you're at it, avoid comparing yourself to others. It never makes you feel better, and it's usually counterproductive. Social media can make this difficult, since it's easy to see what's going on with others, but it often isn't an accurate glimpse into their lives. Remember that everyone is on their own personal journey, just like you. If you keep getting rejected, figure out what skills or experience would give you an edge for a particular job, and then develop them any way you can. Volunteer. Start a project of your own. Study a program or tool used in the industry you're pursuing. Being willing to learn is a valuable trait. and may catch an employer's attention. When it comes to finding jobs, try a variety of different methods. Job boards like Indeed.com and CareerBuilder.com are great for discovering new openings, but don't rely on them exclusively. Try to network with family, friends, and other professionals in your career field. Find a group or organization that caters to your industry or professional interest, and get to know people. Some jobs are hard to find unless you ask around. Above all else, don't give up. If you want something, fight for it. Whether it takes you a month or 10 years to get the job you want, the result is worth the journey.
GCF Global, creating opportunities for a better.
If you do receive a successful job offer, that's fantastic. But contrary to popular belief, you don't have to accept every or the first job offer you receive. Sometimes it's best to take a step back, ask the manager for 24 hours to consider it, and think about all the aspects that matter to you. Things like your salary. How much are your skills and expertise worth? Are you being lowballed or compensated well? Is your salary appropriate for your living, travel, and childcare expenses? Your job they might be offering you £500 more than what you're currently earning, but if you need to travel further by car, you may well spend that full £500 on travel costs and ultimately gain nothing. Consider location. Plenty of people are happy to commute, some aren't. Is the location in a good, accessible commute for you? If you're going to be working antisocial areas, are you going to be in a safe location with appropriate transport links at night? Consider your values. Is this the right company for you, and do their values align with yours? Think about time. Are you going to be expected to work over your contracted hours? Will this time be paid? Either way, is this something you're willing or want to commit to? Consider career progression. Are there adequate career progressions for you? Is this an appropriate path for your plans? Think about benefits. Fantastic if you get given a company car and private healthcare, but if this is tax deductible, will it be worth it for you? What does the company's pension contributions look like? Sick, annual leave, parental care, time off for the kids during holiday. Consider all of these extra benefits and if they are appropriate for you. All of these things should be considered before deciding if you want to accept, decline, or negotiate. If you want to accept the job offer, fantastic, congratulations. This should be done in writing and verbally. You want it to be personal, but you also want it to be official. Thank the employer for the opportunity. They are going to be your new boss after all. Create that bond now. Confirm your start date. Negotiate if needed, but be reasonable. Ask for the job offer in writing and your contact as soon as possible. Give yourself time to read through all the terms and conditions and have a copy for your own records. Complete any onboarding that you might be asked to do. It's vital for most roles to ensure that the company's accesses to systems can be granted. Ensure your right to work is available on request, as this is a legal requirement. And inform any other roles that you're interviewing for that you withdraw from their process. If you are declining a job offer, that's okay too, but do it fast. Once you've made up your mind, let them know. Don't procrastinate, don't go AWOL. You can do this verbally or in writing. Verbal obviously being more personable, but writing can be easier if you want to make sure you say the right thing. Try to contact the person who made you the offer, as the connection and bond will already be there, and it will make it easier for both sides. Thank the employer for the opportunity, and give a brief reason or two, but discuss yourself, not them. Something along the lines, I've decided this job is not right for me at this time. I've been offered a job elsewhere. This is perfect. There's no need to explain that it was due to their location or their manager. After stay in touch. If you want, you can register on their career portal. And be aware that by declining a job offer, you're closing that door. It's unlikely they're going to come back with a counter offer. So know that the opportunity is going to be gone. Don't necessarily consider phoning back a week later, having changed your mind. If you do want to negotiate, then that's okay. I would suggest popping this in writing. Do some research on the role and location and understand what it is you want to negotiate. 9 times out of 10, this will be the salary. Come up with some reasoning as to why you believe you deserve the salary that you're requesting. It could be fairness or quality of work, equal opportunity. Pick a salary range where you'd be happy with the lower end if this is what's being offered, and acknowledge that you have skills the company wants too. Leverage that against something they have that you want. Can you compromise? And perhaps instead of a salary increase, you can request time working from home, additional holiday, or a bonus scheme. Maybe the company wants to see how you do first, and you can agree to a salary review after 3 or 6 months against a set of set KPIs. And consider consequence of non-agreement. If you ask them for additional benefits or ask them for additional money, what if they say no? What then? If the company doesn't agree to your terms, will you accept the role anyway? Are you going to walk away? Think these options through and be comfortable with what you choose. Always email over your request for negotiation, but do expect a phone conversation afterwards. Thank you so much for joining our session today. I do hope you will check out some of our others.